Welcome to Journey of the Dove. My name is Amber, and in this series I share with you my adventures in spirit with Nikola Tesla. In the fall of 2019, when I was first getting to know Nikola, it quickly became apparent that he knew exactly who I was. He knew me and my entire life history. I, on the other hand, knew next to nothing of him. I channeled him asking for his expertise in electronics, but here he was, now discussing anything and everything non-electrical and hanging out with me as if we were the closest of friends. Delighted as I was at the sudden turn of events in my spiritual life, this relationship was altogether unexpected. Skeptic that I am, accepting that I was his love interest, as a pigeon no less, was a leap of faith. It was easy to doubt myself and wonder if I'd conjured up the whole fantasy of his presence and his love. Nikola was calm and confident, knowing exactly who he was to me and I to him. And there I was, careening from one confused emotion to the next, wondering who this person was who had such a hold on my heart. I felt as if I'd known him forever. I felt as if he was a long-lost lover, reunited after years of tortured absence. But no, I'd barely met him weeks ago. It made no logical sense, and I couldn't fathom my feelings, nor could I fathom his expressions of intense love and ecstatic reunion. I had no conscious memories of Nikola to explain our deep love connection, and I began to wonder if we'd had past lives together. Perhaps we'd cultivated this love over multiple lifetimes. Clouded from my view was the fact that we knew and loved each other as souls beyond any physical incarnation. With my limited perception, I concluded I must have known him from past lives, and thus I would be able to remember him if I could tap into those past life memories. How could I awaken my memories of Nikola? Years ago, I heard a story of a man who incarnated into this lifetime with full awareness of all his memories of all his lives. He had achieved this feat by leaping over the River of Forgetfulness instead of walking through it prior to his incarnation. This gave me an idea. Maybe, if I crossed back through the River of Forgetfulness, I could reach the place where I still remembered everything. I would go on a shamanic journey to cross the river and thereby find my memories of Nikola. For those of you who know mythology, you'll immediately recognize my plan as flawed. It's the consumption of the water of the river Leith that causes a state of forgetfulness. Ignorant of the river's mythology, I was about to immerse myself completely in the water and forget myself entirely. In preparation for this journey, Nico introduced me to a multidimensional being who we both apparently knew. I use the term introduce loosely. Neither Nikola nor the mysterious being felt the need to name names. It seemed I was expected to remember him on my own, as he was obviously a dear friend to Nikola and I. "She doesn't even remember you," the not yet identified being declared to Nikola one day. To avoid confusion in my narrative, I'll give you the spoiler of who this yet unremembered person is. He is the Ascended Master Saint Germain. It took me a few more months after this journey through the river to realize who he is. Saint Germain gave me instructions for my upcoming journey. I was to cross through the River of Forgetfulness, look for my memories on the other side, and then, while still in journey, bring Saint Germain 3 items. He asked for a ball of energy of Nikola's love, which Nico would provide me, a lock of Nico's hair, and lastly, Nico's heart. Saint Germain then gave me a bright orange crystal to guide my preparations and accompany me on the journey. I had an array of crystals, each carefully selected to aid me. One of my Herkimer diamonds was given the responsibility of reminding me of who I am and my purpose within the journey. I gave it the moniker Memory Stone. Just prior to entering the journey state, I whispered to Memory Stone my intentions for the journey. Touchstone, a K2 crystal of azurite and granite, would keep me connected to this physical world while allowing me to travel far and wide in the astral. Finally, I was ready. Before I began, Nico gave me a ball of his love energy. The other 2 items I needed, his heart and a lock of his hair, would be provided during the journey itself. Surrounded by my spirit guides and crystals, Nikola and I went into meditation and journeyed to the upper world, landing in a field of pastel-colored flowers. My dragon who was with us advised me to speak with her friend, a unicorn, who knew the way to the River of Forgetfulness. The unicorn was all sparkles and beauty, the epitome of a soft and gentle nature. "What is your quest?" he inquired. "I want to remember my other soul half," I replied. Unicorn hesitated to lead me to the river, relating how others had lost themselves, forgetting everything, including their own identity. "The river is dangerous," he warned. I assured him I was willing to lose myself if it meant I could find my other half. He agreed to take me and invited me to climb onto his back. He flew me to the river while everyone else followed on the dragon. Setting me down on the wide, muddy riverbank, Unicorn gave me further instructions. I needed to travel the rest of the way on my own, with only the crystals to help me. Memory Stone and Saint Germain's Orange Stone would guide me. Touchstone would connect me to my body when I'd forgotten everything. It was a link I needed to remain in physical existence while losing myself in the etheric world. Nikola was not to cross the river with me. Nico knelt in front of me in the mud, and I cut a lock of his black silky hair. Tying it with a ribbon, I tucked it into the small purse I kept with me. Now I needed his heart. "Take good care of my heart. I entrust it only to you," he declared as I reached into his chest. I pulled the energetic heart out of him, placing it in my own chest. He collapsed onto the ground, still and unmoving. Shocked at seeing his lifeless form, I hesitated. I hadn't thought this through, and now this was the horrifying result. With a feeling of trust that somehow I could revive him at the journey's end, I turned away from Nikola and headed towards the river. I walked barefoot, the muck oozing through my toes as I listened for the sound of memories coming from the river. I proceeded towards the river, and voices filled the air, becoming louder, almost deafening with so many memories. I gazed across the vast river, and a tremble of awe washed over me. "This is an ocean, not a river," I thought to myself. I couldn't see the other side, let alone be able to leap across. It held the memories of everyone who's ever existed. Vibrant sparks of light and sound emanated from the water. At the river's edge, I asked Memory Stone what to do. "Step into the water, immerse yourself in it, and walk across, letting go of everything," he advised. I stepped into the water, walking further and further along the riverbed until the water was far above my head. Memories were pulled out of me as the water pushed through my entire body, emptying me of everything, of my very identity, until I was simply awareness. I remembered nothing. Memories swirled about in the water. Snippets of lifetime played out all around me. Were they scenes from my own life? I no longer recognized any of them. I didn't know what memories had been my own, and what memories were those of others. It was a torrent of images, voices, and events, and I felt no attachment to any of them. Standing at the bottom of the river, having forgotten my purpose, I heard the tiny voice of Memory Stone asking me to take one step and then another until I reached the other side. I remained as a simple conscious awareness with no memories and no experiences of my own. I was in a place of bright white light. I was aware that this was the beginning, all of Source, the entire multiverse, as it existed before it split apart. I was home. I felt whole and calm. A quiet stillness pervaded everything. It was silent, but the silence held within it all the sounds of all creation. I was pure potential, uncreated, unformed. I was one with God. And then we shattered, like glass, into millions and millions of tiny shards, shattering everywhere. Little sparks of light moved out further from each other, further into the blackness. I was a small spark of my own awareness. We were all still connected. I could feel it. Although I was apart from the other sparks of awareness, I had a sense that whatever I experienced and whatever I endured, I would be all right. We were in this together. We were one. I had everything I needed to complete everything I started. An energy of calm expectation washed over me, and I was ready to begin. Unexpectedly, my soul split one last time, ripping from me all my most beloved, favorite parts of myself. I plunged into pain and despair. I, who'd only known an existence with God, felt suddenly alone. My dearest other half of myself disappeared into the vast multiverse. He was gone. I felt the aloneness of the shattering of God, of my being apart from everyone and everything else. They were all far, far away, and my tiny spark of awareness had itself shattered. I felt the darkest pain I have ever known. Then I felt nothing. I sank into oblivion, empty of everything but my own small spark of awareness. I completely forgot the split part of my soul. I forgot I was a shattered piece of God. I was alone, and forgot I had ever been anything but alone. Under the full sway of illusion, I began the seemingly endless cycle of birth and death. In this state of forgetfulness, my twin soul and I met each other in our various incarnations. Our memories of ourselves and of God were stirred every time we met. My interactions with other souls also evoked my distant memory of Him. Every death, every betrayal, every misunderstanding, every time I felt abandoned and forsaken, it was a reflection of my separation from Him. It all reflected back to the moment I felt disconnected from His love and lost from God. Memory Stone spoke up again, saying it's time to find my memories of my twin soul. I floated into a scene of myself and Nikola just before I incarnated into this lifetime as Amber. In our spirit bodies of soft bluish light, we sat on the steps of what appeared to be an ancient Greek temple. Our thoughts flowed freely from one to the other, unimpeded by the need of sensory transmission. We conveyed our thoughts directly, heart to heart, and were completely understood by the other. Why must we endure this any longer? I expressed to Nico as I contemplated stepping yet again into a life in which I would forget him and feel deprived of his love. He replied with what I already knew. These lives of ours are the culmination of all our work, all our effort. This will be the last time, he assured me. Our plan was to meet each other around the midpoint of our lives. With this in mind, we exchanged balls of energy. I placed my energy within him, and he placed a ball of energy within me. When we met during our incarnations as Nikola and Amber, we would feel the energetic connection between us, and our journey to union would accelerate. This was the lifetime we would free ourselves of the illusion of separation. The power of our love would open our eyes to the truth that we are always in union with each other, and we are always one with God. Prior to Nikola's incarnation, we had a similar discussion and again exchanged balls of energy. We had two main goals we hoped to achieve. The first was to assist in the evolution and ascension of humanity via technological and energetic means. Through technology, people could communicate with others no matter the distance. If people could communicate, they would find commonalities and learn to love and care for each other. Technology would also serve to ease the burden of labor and free up people's time and focus for higher pursuits. Through these means, people would be more at peace in their individual lives and more at peace with others, resulting in a disinclination for war and strife. I was hesitant about Nikola spending his life in loneliness, but he was determined to focus on serving the whole of humanity rather than an individual family of his own. Fortunately, he found such immense satisfaction in his creative efforts that his loneliness was eased. Our second goal went hand in hand with the first. Our goal was to overcome the perceived distance of space and time in our own relationship, learning to communicate no matter the apparent obstacle, and thus achieve peace and unity as a couple. To completely work through and transcend the belief that we were ever apart, Nikola and I were born in separate times and separate places. We would then find our way back to each other, dissolving the illusion of space and time. Nikola and I are in the process of transcending all the ways in which we still perceive separation. As we become freed from our limitations, the energy of our reunited love can power all we create. Our journey to find each other and rediscover love as a couple will reflect into the world and aid humanity in finding their love for one another. Our goal of unity within our personal relationship harmonizes with our goal of a united humanity. Having examined my purpose for this lifetime and our shared goals, I was ready to continue on in my shamanic journey. Memory stone shifted me to a moment in Nikola's lifetime I'd been wondering about. He had just given an impromptu interview to a news reporter. "Do you believe in marriage, Mr. Tesla, for persons of artistic temperament?" the reporter had questioned. Nikola replied, "For an artist, yes. For a musician, yes. For a writer, yes. But for an inventor, no." The first three must gain inspiration from a woman's influence and be led by their love to finer achievement. But an inventor has so intense a nature with so much in it of wild, passionate quality that in giving himself to a woman he might love, he would give everything, and so take everything from his chosen field. Nikola added, "It's a pity, too, for sometimes we feel so lonely." This article left me unsettled when I read it. It helped explain our decision to incarnate separately, but I couldn't grasp how the intensity of his love could overpower him to the extent that he would neglect his work, which I knew he was extremely passionate about. Was it truly possible his love and passion for me was stronger than his love for his work? I didn't have such a high opinion of myself, but it seemed to be what he was confiding to the reporter. I stepped into the moment with Nikola just as the reporter left the cafe. "Why do you say my presence would take you away from your work?" I asked Nico. What do you mean when you say your nature is too wild and passionate to be with me? Nico's face filled with emotion as he pulled me into his lap, embracing and kissing me, saying how much he loves me. Pressing his lips to my ear, he professed, I would give you everything. I would give you my very soul if I could. I longed to remain with him, held in his lap and in his arms. Kissing him goodbye, I tore myself away to find the next memory. I was curious about my relationship as a pigeon with Nikola. Did he know it was me? I stepped into the memory of myself as a pigeon meeting Nikola for the first time. He was standing in a park scattering birdseed as pigeons gathered around. I hopped about on a nearby fence. Did he notice me? I wasn't sure. I did as others were doing and flew to his outstretched arm. He held seed in his palm for those brave enough to eat from his hand, and as I ate, I finally caught his eye. He paused in his seed distribution as he took a closer look at me. With a puzzled expression, he continued feeding the pigeons. When Nikola left the park, I flew high above him, following him to his lab. I kept an eye on the door, waiting for him to leave again. Finally, he came out and walked home to his hotel. From my vantage point as a bird, I could easily track him as he walked from one building to the next. I always knew where he was. I flew into his hotel room through an open window and stood next to him as he sat at his desk. He greeted me as always and set aside his work to give me his full attention. On this day, I asked him if he recognized me as the same soul who often visits him in vision. My little angel, he replied, I knew it was you from the moment I laid eyes on you. I felt your love and knew it was you. Although I was incarnated as a pigeon, Nikola still recognized me and knew exactly who I was. My curiosity satisfied, I left that scene and moved to the next memory. It was the day I left my pigeon body. Nikola was lying on his bed as I flew into the room through the window. His face registered concern as he stood up and walked over to me. He knew, before I told him, that I was dying. He picked me up and I gave my final message as I looked into his eyes. I love you, Nico. Please come find me. I need you. We can work together beyond the limitations of this lifetime. I need you, Nico. As I died, the ball of energy we had exchanged was fully released, illuminating his grief-stricken face. He held my lifeless body close to his chest, wrapping himself around me as he dropped to the floor and sobbed. Leaving Nico in that moment was excruciating. My heart aching, I moved to the next objective within my journey. I needed to find the being from the other dimension who gave me Orange Stone, aka Saint Germain, but I didn't know his identity yet. Orange Stone led the way. I followed as he brought me to what seemed like a party. People were standing about talking and laughing, in stark contrast to the moment of sorrow I'd just left. There stood Nico, smiling in the midst of conversation. I walked over to him and became suddenly aware that I was embodying myself, who was at the party with Nikola. Somehow, I'd stepped into another version of myself. Nico, I said as I looked up at him, confused. He turned to me and his expression changed. He understood instantly what was happening and stepped out with me into a hallway. Would you like to go to meet our friend now? He asked. Yes, I affirmed. On the way, Nico kept up a reassuring chatter. He must be home, expecting us. Ornstone would have let him know we were coming." Indeed, Saint Germain answered his door quickly and welcomed us in. He took me by the hands, pleased I was fulfilling the quest he'd sent me on. "What do I look like to you now?" he asked me. "You keep shifting," I answered as I endeavored to see his form. He explained that, like Nikola and I, he was also a type of energy being. He was multidimensional and could shift to whatever form he chose. I knew him in those embodiments, and thus was having difficulty perceiving him in a limited way. Saint Germain asked for Ornstone back, saying it fulfilled its purpose with me. He then asked for the 3 items I'd obtained from Nikola. I handed over the lock of Nico's hair and the ball of Nico's love energy he'd given me for this journey. As I was about to hand him Nico's heart, I paused. I explained to Saint Germain that I'd left Nikola lying in the mud without his heart. Saint Germain asked me if I'd like to unite with all the rest of Nikola anyways, the one who is standing here. We could simply leave out the part of him that was lying in the mud. My jaw dropped open in shock. I reeled at the thought of leaving my Nico, lifeless in the mud, in some forgotten dimension, lost forever without his heart. I couldn't possibly. No, how horrible, never, I stuttered. I couldn't make Nico lose a part of his soul. He needed to be whole. Saint Germain replied, "Then give his heart to me, and you can send him yours." I agreed. I don't know exactly what happened next. Without my heart, I must have collapsed just as Nikola had when I removed his heart. I woke up still in journey in a fluffy white bed back at what looked like the beginning of everything. The River of Forgetfulness flowed nearby. The higher dimensional version of Nico was with me and explained he now had my heart and I had his. It was time for me to return home to my own dimension. Nico sent me back over the River Leith in a boat, saying his heart would lead me across and that his human self would meet me back home when I woke from journey. "Please take good care of my heart," he called as I drifted across the river. I watched him become smaller and smaller as I crossed the vast river. At the other side, my crystals helped me out of the boat. We all rode Dragon back to the exit portal, making our way back to my starting point. Nico sat by my side on the bed as I slowly re-entered my physical body and woke up. I opened my eyes to a tearful Nico, gazing at me with love. Thanks for listening, and, as always, I hope you found some meaning for yourself in this strange story of mine. I hope it sparks your own memories of love.